law firm behind this case, the Alliance for Defending Freedom, has an amazing record. I think they're undefeated in the Supreme Court. I do think they're going to lose this one, though.
Welcome to the Debriefs, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with commentary editor Conn Carroll. On Conn, we now have, from this past week, dueling rulings in a lawsuit over the FDA approval of a popular abortion pill. Tell us what's going on with this case.
Sure. So the FDA, way back 23 years ago, approved an abortion pill for use for that purpose. And then 22 years later, November of this past year, a group of doctors got together and they tried to say the FDA didn't follow their own rules when they first approved it 22 years ago. So once that suit was filed, you had a separate group of liberal doctors in Seattle. They got together and they filed their own case, kind of doing the opposite, to say that, look, the FDA followed the rules, and so we want to freeze what the FDA does. So this past week, a judge in Texas ruled for the doctors who wanted to overrule the pills or stop the pills from being distributed, and that is just hours later, the Washington court ruled the opposite way. So now you have conflicting court opinions, so this is probably going to go to the Supreme Court.
Why are the doctors arguing, besides the sort of procedural element of the FDA, that the pill shouldn't be out there? Are they saying it's too dangerous?
Right. So they do have science showing that these pills do often cause women to go to the emergency room for different complications, and so there is evidence that they can, in certain cases, harm women. But on the other hand, this is a medication that has been available for 23 years. A lot of people use it. It's widely used. There's no real public outcry for this medication to be stopped. In fact, if you look at the polling, the vast majority of people think this drug should be legal.
Do you expect that who do you expect to emerge the victor, I guess, if this goes to the Supreme Court?
So the law firm behind this case, the Alliance for Defending Freedom, has an amazing record. I think they're undefeated in the Supreme Court. I do think they're going to lose this one, though, for two reasons. One, as I mentioned at the outset, the original decision by the FDA was 23 years ago. There is a blanket 6-year statute of limitations on any final government action. So that ran out 17 years ago. Now they've tried to have this unique, it's called equitable tolling case, in that because they filed a suit or filed an internal petition within the FDA to review it, and the FDA didn't get back to them until 2016. They say that tolled the statute of limitations, but even then, the FDA got back to them in March of 2016, which means that same 6-year statute of limitation wouldn't have run out March of 2022. They didn't file till November of 22. So they're just out of luck on the statute of limitations either way. And then there's also a standing problem, in that this case is not an abortion case. It involves abortion pills, but this is really an administrative law case. So if a court is going to give these doctors standing to contest this action, basically means anytime any regulatory agency makes any type of safety decision whatsoever, any type of business would be able to challenge that action in court, and that's not what standing is allowed to do. So, for example, if the National Highway Transportation Administration, changed some decision about what's required in brakes, any auto shop in the country can say, this will cause more accidents, therefore I have standing to challenge it, and that's just not the way standing works.
And finally, NPR this week announced it wouldn't be using its Twitter account anymore because under Elon Musk's leadership, Twitter has added this government-funded agency label to its account. Is it the government funding that's what makes NPR biased?
Yeah, well, I mean, at first it was even worse than that, because the first label that Twitter put on NPR was state affiliated, which is like what Pravda is. I mean, clearly NPR is not, run by the federal government. Now, they are funded by the federal government, but I don't really see what putting that on there really adds value in any way, because NPR is biased, sure, they have a liberal bias, but so does the Washington Post, so does MSNBC, so does CNN. Just because it's not the government funding that is making NPR biased. So it seems to me that Elon Musk is just needlessly alienating people and annoying them by attaching this label to NPR when it's not the driving force of what makes them a biased news organization.
Yeah, and I would argue NPR is not even the worst offender in that
Yeah,
group.
absolutely. There's some good people there.
Well, Conn, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely.
You can get more writing from Conn and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.